So this is part 3 of the printer object videos. And I noticed from looking at the UML diagram that I did one thing wrong. In the interface object, I had a cluster of UI references that included all of the indicators that I put in the stop button. But when I actually put together the interface object, I forgot to cluster these guys. So let me go ahead and fix that really quickly. And I'm going to go back to EE241 and let's make a printer demo 3. And we'll go ahead and open the project. And I'm going to rename this as well. So this is printer demo 3. And let's go to the interface. And here we have our indicators. So we want to put these in a cluster named UI references. So let's add a cluster. And we'll call it UI references. And then we're just going to drag all of these guys into the cluster and then resize the cluster so they all display. There we go. Okay, and now we're going to put the whole cluster back in our private data and save. Save all. So this may have broken some of our code, but actually LabVIEW is smart enough to do the right thing in many cases. So let's start with test serial sync to printer with indicators. And we see that it actually doesn't show any errors. So let's see what it did. If we go to the show block diagram and we look at one of the rapid commands, and we go to set XYZ and interface set XYZ. So it's actually been smart enough to know that now instead of just X indicator, it's UI references dot X indicator dot Y indicator and so on. So it's corrected all those references. Now the formatting's a little messed up because the box is bigger, but that's pretty much all that we have to do for that. I think I'm going to clean this one up a little bit as long as I'm here. Okay. And there we go. So let's go ahead and test one of these. Save the changes. So let's test the serial, actually let's test the file sync to printer DI. And we'll run this. And we notice that it flashed 5 and then back to 0, if you were quick enough to notice that. And we'll go back to documents. Actually, we were in EET, printer demo 3. Oh, where did we write this? We wrote it to printer demo, so let's actually change this path here. And let's put it in printer demo 3. And we'll save it as test file out.gcode. And now we'll run it. And watch the Z position closely. Okay. I didn't actually see it that time, but so here's our new test file out G-code. Edit with Notepad. And it looks fine. Now I also want to change the printer close command. Now that we have a rapid VI, it makes sense to go ahead and move the printhead out of the way before we actually turn off the temperature and turn off the fan and stop the motors. So we want to clear the object that we're printing, just we don't want to stop with the extruder head right up against the object. So I'm going to go ahead and create a rapid Z method that looks just like rapid.vi. And so I'm going to create a new VI from static dispatch template. And this one is going to be called Rapid Z. Let's fix the icon. So this is going to take a numeric Z value. And all it's going to do is call rapid VI. So rapid takes an X, Y, Z. We have a new Z, so we're just going to reuse the X and Y that we already have. So we have to pull those out. So we're going to unbundle again. And we're going to grab the current X position and the current Y position. And the new Z position. Go ahead and link in the error. And we'll link in the printer. And that's it. So now we can use this rapid Z inside of our close method. So I'm going to grab a hold of the current Z position and I'm going to rapid to a location that's 5 millimeters up from wherever I currently am when I stop. So Z plus 5 which on the printer bot junior is up. And then I need my printer. And this error line and now, after I've done the print, so what this will do, so what this will do is after I've printed my object, it'll raise the print head 5 millimeters from wherever it was, and then will send my command to turn off the heat and turn off the fan and stop the motors, and then we'll close the sink. So let's go ahead and try this. We'll see that it raises the print head by 5. Let's go and write to our G-code file again. And let me open that file. Let me do it this way. So right here, it's added that set of commits. So we've gone ahead and we've moved to the home location, raised the print head 5, returned it to the home location, but then when we stop, it raises it up 5 again, and we're done. Now we can also do the same thing in rapid XY, so that after we raise the print head by 5, we move it back to X0, Y0. So let's go ahead and add that too. And I'm just going to save this as, make a copy, add it to printer demo 3 LV Proj. And I'm going to call this rapid XY. And change this icon a little bit. Save it. And instead of having a Z, we're going to have an X and a Y. So we'll wire this one in too. And then on the block diagram, this time we're only going to return So we actually have to move this into the printer class. So before we couldn't actually break out, unbundle those values, because you can only access the properties here, the private properties, within objects of the printer class. But now that we've moved that method into the printer class, now all of a sudden this is legal again. So that's demonstrating that if you try to access a private property outside of a method of a class, you get an error. So let me just go ahead and hook up this Y. So I have actually, this is going to the wrong location, so I'll delete that. So I want the extruder Z, and X, Y, Z, and that should be it. So we'll save this. And now let me open my close again. And so here I'm rapiding up to 5 above. We go ahead and grab a rapid XY. So I move to a safe height. And here I'm going to go to 0, 0. There. So now to demonstrate this a little bit better, I'm going to go back to my file, sync to printer test. And instead of just rapiding to 5, 5, and then back to 0, I'm going to get rid of this. And I'm just going to close the printer after I rapid to 5, 5, 5. So this program has been changed, or this G-code file has been changed. And so now let's see what it does. So I go to 5 in my startup, and here's where I'm at 5. And then I rapid to 5, 5, 5. And then I rapid to 5, 5, 10. So I raise the print head 5 more millimeters after I finish printing. And then I return the print head to 0, 0, 10, which is raised but in the home position. So that works. Now let's look at the program again. And you'll notice that there's a lot of wires coming into this init box, and we can do a little better than that. So if we look at the UML diagram, see there's this bundle UI refs method. And what this is going to do is just be a little helper function that takes these references in, creates a bundle, and then passes the bundle to init instead of passing all of these wires to init. So let's go ahead and work on that. And under my interface object, I'm going to create a new static dispatch template. And I'm going to call that bundle UI references. And I'm going to call it bundle refs. And this is going to take the same things that the init used to take. So let me copy and paste those. Actually, I'm cutting and pasting. So these are going to take the references in, and let me link them in. And now it's going to return a UI references bundle. So let me grab one of those off of my interface object. So this UI references cluster here, I'm going to copy that and paste it here. And this is going to be my output. Move this down. Move that down. There we go. So we'll select an output pin for that. And now, if we look at the block diagram, so this is going to be output, and we need to make it an indicator, change to indicator, and make this a little smaller so I can work on it. So X, Y, Z, and stop. And we need to get the right type for UI references, so we can unbundle by name. And that gives us UI references. And then we can feed that into a bundle by name as the type. So this is going to create a bundle UI references cluster. And we want this X indicator. Actually, let me start this over again. So we add 4 things total. And we'll go stop, X, Y, and Z. And now let's try hooking these in. There. So this gives us our output cluster. And now everything should be hooked in, except in the error case. So in the error case, well, I don't actually think this can produce an error. So let's get rid of the error case entirely. So I'm going to delete this case. And now I'm going to remove the case structure. And I'm going to get rid of the error in and error out. And I can get rid of one of these pins here. Sorry. Change pattern. And we need 4 coming in and 2 coming out. Actually, we need 5 coming in. Let's go for this one here. So these are backwards from how we want them, so we'll disconnect these terminals. And then this will be our interface out and our UI refs out. So stop, X, Y, Z. So Y and Z are backwards. Y, Z. So we'll save that. And now, in our initialize, we'll go ahead and add a UI references. Great. So now our initialize takes a UI references cluster, and so instead of doing the bundle, we can just bundle in one UI references. So delete that, get rid of some of these wires here. And we have UI references coming in. So now we want to bundle by name UI references to change this to control. And now we have an output cluster. So there we go. So we've basically just split initialize into two parts. Instead of bundling in each of the individual properties, now we're passing in a cluster of properties and just setting the cluster. And let's fix our program now. So this initialization is now a little different. So instead of just calling init, whoops, now we're going to call bundle. And actually, this guy wants to be at the top here. So he goes in here and into here. And then stop goes into the top. X, Y, and Z. Clean them up a little. And then the UI references comes into here. Can make this a little neater. There. So this gives us a little more room to play with and is a little better logically organized, but should do the same thing. And if we go back to Notepad, it says it's been modified. But when we load it, we get the same exact output. So everything seems to be working correctly. Now we also have to fix our test serial sync to printer with indicators. So this time I'm going to delete that and remove these loose ends. And we'll move this here, remove those loose ends. And then I'm going to copy and paste from my test file sync to printer. So I need this init and bundle, and that should be it. I'll paste those in. And let's go ahead and reconnect this. There, so that clears all the errors on this one as well. So let's go ahead and test this one. So Z is at 5 and the print head is heating up again. Everything worked correctly. So let's look at our UML diagram and see where we are right now. And we've implemented all of the G-code sync objects. We've completed the interface except for this stopped, and this is going to be just, it's going to return a Boolean value, true or false, if the stop button has been pushed or not. For the printer, we've implemented everything except for this stopped, which is going to use the interface to decide whether the button is pushed or not. And we haven't done the feed commands yet, so we need the feed commands and the extrude amount. We've done the rapids, the close, initialize, and we haven't done set temperature. So we're pretty close to finished. Let's just go ahead and implement the stopped feature in this video, and that will completely finish our interface object for now. So we have a reference to a control here. And what we want to do is create a new VI from static dispatch. And it's going to return a Boolean value. So let me get one of these round ones here, which is classic Boolean round stop button. So this is either going to be true or false, and we'll link that in. And we'll save this as stopped and fix the icon. So that's a little long. So how about just stop question mark? So here's our block diagram. And let's make this a little smaller because once again my screen is just not that big for this video. And here's our output. Oh, this should have been an indicator, so let's make it an indicator. So what we want to do first is get our stop button reference. And since this is a reference, we need to get the property value. Or I guess I should say the value property. Hook in the airline as well. So there's our reference out. Let's go ahead and rebundle that just in case it got changed, which it wouldn't, but better safe than sorry. There's our output cluster. Now, this value here, this isn't a Boolean, even though the value of the stop button is either going to be true or false. What I'm actually getting here is called a variant, and that's sort of a generic type that could be any one of a number of different types. And so I need to basically tell LabVIEW that the version of this variant value that I'm interested in is a Boolean value. And the way I do that is under the variant palette, I get variant to data. And let's look at the pins on this. So it takes a type in, it takes the variant value, error in and error out, and then it produces data in whatever type I specify. So this variant is connected, but now I need to give it a type. And the way I can give it a type is just to basically just wire a constant of the right type in there. So if I go under Boolean programming and just grab a true or false constant, I can just wire this in here, and that tells LabVIEW that the type produced here is the same type as this guy, so it's either going to be true or false. So now I have a true or false value coming out that I can wire into my button, and I can also hook up my error lines. And that should be it. Oh, I have an error here. Oh, so I'm missing the assignment to the tunnel because in the false case, in the error case, I don't have anything going to my button, to my output. So what value do I want this thing to return for stopped if there's been an error? Well, let's say true. So anytime I hit an error, it's going to be the same thing as if somebody had actually pressed the stop button. So now I've cleared all my errors. I'll go ahead and save this. And let's implement stopped on the printer. So we're going to create a new VI from static dispatch. And we'll save that as stopped as well. So under printer stopped. And we'll use the same icon text. And it's going to be producing a Boolean value. Hook this to a pin. So this time, the way that the printer is going to say whether it's stopped or not is it's going to ask the interface whether it's stopped or not. And by doing it this way, instead of having the printer check the value of that button directly, this means that all the code is only in one place. It's only in the stopped method on the interface object, which makes it really easy to change later, re-implement if I want to have an interface that has a different method of stopping the machine. So once again, this is going to be an indicator. And let's go ahead and get our interface out. And we're going to grab the stopped method of interface. And this gives us an interface out. Once again, we'll just go ahead and rebundle that. And we'll hook the error line back. And now I have a Boolean value that I hook to my stop output. And once again, this tunnel isn't fully connected because we have to handle the error case. So we'll handle it the same way. We'll just go ahead and pass in true. And now we've cleared our errors, so we'll go ahead and save. So that's the stopped method on interface and on printer. And in the next video, we'll go ahead and finish this up by doing the feed and extrude amount.